Let us load our page. There we go. So, topic for today is how to read for writing and using reading notes. Um, very briefly, the idea is the following: is that you can waste a lot of time, sort of like reading for a paper. It's an amazing way for procrastinating. I once did this for months. So what I want to do with you is to share a little bit my system to make sure that when I'm reading, it is really effective, that I'm not wasting time on purpose because I'm insecure about writing a paper. Of course, I'm insecure about writing a paper, but I just don't waste time in reading. Um, Again, I'm trying to structure a little bit the videos. Um, there are basically three stages that I use. The first one is sort of like an ideation stage. It's basically about getting the idea, getting the frame for the paper. I build a reading set in my sort of like reference manager software, and then comes the real deal, the real part of reading for writing, where I'm. It's almost like qualitative data coding. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to walk you through each of these stages. Okay, so to do that, I'm going to take us to my reference manager. So that's bookends. Okay. So I want to show you this. Okay. So uh, this is a paper where I am super clear about the framing. So this is a paper for which I got a revise and resubmit at MIS Quarterly, which I see as a sort of a continuation of a research agenda that I started with my transfiguration paper, which I also published at MIS Quarterly. Okay. So you can see there are not a lot of references here, and most of the references are actually color coded, which means that they are in some way they were in some way useful. Okay. Now what I want to do is I want to show you another piece. Where is it? Give me a sec. Where is it? Okay. Yeah, this one. No, sorry. Yeah, this one. Okay, where it's a paper got a revised and resubmit too, but in a smaller journal, uh, and I really did not know the frame for this paper. So I knew the data was interesting. I sort of knew what it was about, that it was about leadership of volunteers, but I didn't know what was a specific research question, what was a specific topic on the relationship of volunteers. So you see, I read way more for this paper, and there's much less of it that is useful. Okay, so in this first stage, what do you do? Well, if you have an idea, that's great, right? And sort of, and basically, what you're doing is you're reading to really narrow down that idea into a research question. If you don't have an idea, I, I'll give, obviously, it's very difficult to give recipes for this, but I have two tips, okay? If you don't know what to read, what's the idea for your paper, okay? First tip to read broadly is search for papers on the same uh, uh, public or population. Okay, so for me, for example, in this paper that I just showed you, I just basically read a lot on volunteers. Okay, on volunteers in management research. Why? Because my data was about volunteers, and so by reading about volunteers, I came up to the topic of leadership, and in the topic of leadership, I came down to this idea about performance management in volunteer organizations. Okay, So that's the first thing. So for my previous MS quarterly pieces, they're all about my PhD data set. That data set is about salespeople. So if I didn't have a very clear idea, I could just read papers about salespeople. Right. So that's the first tip. Read papers on your population: volunteers, salespeople, farmers, whatever. Second idea is read papers on the problem in your research setting. What is the problem that people spend most of their time working on? What are the things that they are complaining about? So for example, at Desk Sales, for the research setting for my PhD, people complained a lot about having to report data on their company's information system. So that's what I read, okay? So what I do is I go through Google Scholar, search all these papers, and then put them on a sort of like a reading list in Bookends. I use Bookends. I just find it easier than many other software, and also because I have to pay for this out of my own pocket, it's also cheaper. But I really like Bookends. It's pretty good. Only downside is it doesn't have like a menu bar cite while you write. I mean, you can still cite while you write. It just doesn't have it on the menu bar. You have to have the application open. I used Papers before, but Papers is just like bloated and slow. It's horrible now, so I just switched to Bookends. Good. So that's the first stage. Okay. Then what I do is I build a reading set. What is the reading set? It's the set of papers that are useful for the theory section and the discussion section of my paper, okay? So for that, I really like Bookends because Bookends allows you to color code papers. So you see, I can go, let me see, color label, yeah. So in Bookends, you can assign labels to colors and then color each paper with that label. So I have red useful, red not useful, and red critical, okay? So red critical is really, I mean, this paper is at the core of the argument. Red useful is a paper that I still want to read for my reading notes, but you know, it's not at the core of the article. And then red not useful is just stuff that I read and I didn't find like super useful. But you know, it's still somewhat related to the argument, okay? So these are papers that, you know, if I need, if I need an additional reference, if I need an additional quote, and I don't want to pick quotes all from the same paper, I can go to these red sort of like not useful sort of papers. Okay, good. So that's stage 2, building your reading set that I do in my software. And then I basically sort of code these papers, okay? So for that, I go to Scrivener, okay? And in Scrivener, I keep reading notes, okay? And my reading notes are outside my notes for the paper, okay? That's just a way I organize my research folder, okay? And this is what I do for reading notes. Basically for reading notes, I copy and paste here text from the article that I think is important and useful. So I just paste the text, and then I also make as I do that I make notes. Okay, so here I'm making notes about what is my contribution after reading this bit of the paper. What's the contribution of my paper? I make notes about, you know, what the paper that I just read is trying to do. So I'm basically copy pasting important parts of the paper and making like a small memos around it. You see? So you see, I mean, again, most of it I'm just copy pasting parts of the paper with the occasional note. What am I doing here? What I'm doing here is the reading equivalent of data reduction, so open coding in qualitative data. What I'm trying to do is say, okay, what are the parts of these good papers that I need to read again when I'm writing the theory and the introduction. Okay. Now, after I've done that, and you see it's quite extensive, I basically color code. Okay. Now, and just to show you, I have here my data, qualitative data color coded as well. So basically, in blue are things that I want to use. In yellow, I think are things that I really need to take into account. Okay, that are not just things that I can put in my paper that I can think about, but core things. Okay, so normally these come from those core papers. Okay, and then in purple are things that I did not use when I ended up like writing the theory of the discussion. I did not use, but I really think they are interesting. So I just keep them highlighted because I may want to use this, if I get to revise and resubmit and I need to change the theory or the framing in some way, I may use this, or I may want to use this in future papers. And so you see, then there's like a significant reduction in what I'm using for my paper, and basically that's it. Okay, so I hope you enjoy this. Key learnings here are, when you read for your paper idea, either look at similar populations, salespeople, farm workers, volunteers, or at the key problem that people are complaining about that they're working on. Then build your reading set. These are, of all of the papers that you read, papers that are relevant for your theory section and discussion section. Put this in your reference management software and then color code them if you can, or make some sort of note to make sure that you reduce the number of papers that you're reading. And then when you are reading, basically code the papers. Okay, code papers by first doing data reduction, so by just picking up the quotes or the bits of the paper that you really need to think, and then by memoing around them so that you begin to organize and structure your theory section and your discussion section. That's it for today. I hope this was helpful for everybody, and I'll catch you guys tomorrow. Have a good one.